Welcome to the sun-drenched tropical paradise of Isle Delfino. We're so pleased to welcome you to our beautiful home. Come enjoy a natural wonderland to which we've added the world's finest resort facilities, a spectacular amusement park, and succulent seafood.
One of the major beliefs I have in gaming is that no matter what, there really hasn't been a bad Super Mario game. For over 30 years, Mario has delighted and entertained, and has been a part of many timeless memories for players. And yet for all the versions of the series I would happily extol, there's one entry I'd always never quite understood, that being 2002's Super Mario Sunshine. Super Mario Sunshine is the Gamecube Super Mario platformer, and falls into an incredibly weird spot. It's the middle child between two of the most widely regarded and beloved entries in the Super Mario series. It's the follow-up from Super Mario 64, the game that established how 3D platformers should be, and you'd be hard-pressed to find any platformer, let alone any game these days, that's not taking any lessons from this. It also precedes Super Mario Galaxy, one of the most majestic and revolutionary 3D platformers ever made, with some fantastic level design and amazing music. It gave Nintendo so many ideas that they went ahead and released a sequel with all the ideas they wanted to implement in that first game. Sunshine naturally fixes one of the biggest issues of Super Mario 64 in that the camera is freely controllable thanks to having a second analog stick. What the Galaxy games take away from Sunshine is a bit more interesting, effectively an overall refinement and sense of polish, while being weirder and more experimental, something that practically defines Super Mario Sunshine, mostly due to the part that Sunshine removes mostly all of Mario's moves from Mario 64. So instead of crouch jumping or long jumping, you now have Flood, a water tank and water gun system. While Mario has a pretty cool spin jump, he makes up for the emissions with a hover move thanks to one of the attachments, plus others that allow him to rocket across and above levels. Mario can't punch enemies, he just sprays them with water instead. Effectively, it's a good showcase of the GameCube controller thanks to the pressure-sensitive triggers. Now, if all this sounds like a regression, especially after Mario 64 had basically defined how 3D games should feel and play like, yeah, I can understand that, but honestly, it feels like a genuine challenge. Mastering Mario's movements is what makes Mario Sunshine feel fascinating to me. It's not quite as precise or accurate as other Mario games, but it feels satisfying mastering what Mario can do with his new toy. And just when you think you've got the movement with Flood down, then there are the levels where Mario doesn't have Flood to help correct or propel him, which sounds daunting, but incredibly satisfying to tackle. Coupled with some truly abstract level and visual design, and they become some of the best moments in Super Mario Sunshine. What doesn't work as well as the story. Sunshine is the first game to really focus on including a deeper story in the Mario universe, and the first to also use a lot of voice acting. The unskippable results leave a lot to be desired.
Leave my mama alone, you bad man. I won't let you take Mama Peach away.
Mama Peach? I'm your mama?
I judge the defendant guilty as charged. I hereby order the defendant to clean this entire island. Until Isle Delfino is completely free of his vile handiwork, Mario shall not be allowed to leave.
Thank you for purchasing this item from Gad Science Incorporated. Preparing to register customer information, scanning and classifying subject data. Subject identified as Mario, resident of the Mushroom Kingdom. Data storage complete.
With that being said, allow me to address something you're probably thinking. For a series about recommending games that you might not have heard of or might not have played, why recommend something from a series you've basically described as being consistently great? You see, the thing is that Super Mario Sunshine and I have never really gotten along. Every time I hear an argument about why it's this great game, I scoff, but I go try the game again anyway because surely I know I'm wrong and I've missed something. I mean, I know I'm wrong on this. We're talking about Super Mario here. How can a Mario game not be good? Every time I've attempted to get some progress into Mario Sunshine, I get around 15-30 minutes in before I give up and tell that person why they're wrong, and I swear off Sunshine, rinse and repeat over the last few years. This time, I've kind of stuck with it. What's changed, I honestly couldn't tell you. I've spent hours just thinking about why after all this time Super Mario Sunshine just clicks, and I've never really come up with an answer that I'm actually happy with. The genuine and honest answer as to what changed my mind this time, well, it's the same story as always. I hear someone talking about it, I got the idea to go play it, and I started playing it again because surely I'm missing something. The difference is this time, for some strange bizarre reason that I cannot actually explain, it's actually clicked. I'm still not fully convinced it's a hidden gem though. The camera can be a bit too fiddly and frustrating at times, even though you can fully rotate it. The controls can feel a little loose at times, but until you get used to it. It also doesn't feel like it's much more of an improvement over Mario 64 at times. But I'm willing to look past a lot of that because I'm enjoying myself, and in a way, it's a perfect time capsule of Nintendo around this time. Nintendo circa the Gamecube was a company that was seemingly way more experimental and willing to try such weird things with all their IP and hardware. This was an era where we got 2 first-person Metroid games, a Star Fox game that was basically Rare's attempt at a Zelda game, and Nintendo working with third-party developers in some exciting and bizarre ways. And that's not getting into the one E3 where their big showcase was Pac-Man Versus, where Nintendo execs were joined by game design luminary Will Wright, or bizarre accessories like the e-reader. In some ways, I kinda miss this era of Nintendo. Even though they were lagging behind the competition, seeing them try all these weird strategies was fascinating and led to some unique and interesting games and features. It's conclusively way more interesting and far less depressing than the Wii U era, which just felt directionless. So where does that leave Super Mario Sunshine in the end? Well, it's stuck between 2 of Nintendo's best platforming efforts, but it doesn't feel like that weird middle child you never really talk about. In its own right, it's a fascinating and flawed game, and emblematic of Nintendo in a strange time. It's a game that marches to the beat of its own drum, and if it can somehow convince me after all these years to actually accept it, I guess it can't be that bad after all.